This is the Relentless Podcast. My name is Christine. I'm a small business owner and student of success. I have become obsessed with talking with other entrepreneurs about their strategies, struggles, tactics, and routines. One of the key qualities that all of these individuals have in common, their ability to be relentless. Welcome back to the Relentless Podcast. I'm Christine Van Duzen, and I am so excited about today's episode. I am here with someone that I personally admire very much. She is the president and CEO of Bonadent. Welcome to the show, Daniele Bonafiglia-Wirth.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. You've just informed me off camera that this is your first interview, so I am so flattered. So people in the area are probably very familiar with you and Bonadent, but for our out-of-town listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself and the company.
Sure, absolutely. So born and raised in Seneca Falls, have spent the majority of my life here. A little stint away, went to school in Manhattan, came back after college, and have really been here ever since and been a part of my family's business. Bonadent is a dental laboratory started by my grandfather in 1948.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, we've been in existence for over 75 years. My grandfather ran it successfully for a number of years, followed by my dad. And now my sister and I are involved in the business, along with a really strong group of local individuals who help us with the organization. So,
yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, so growing up, you come from this entrepreneurial family. And so what was that like to witness, kind of the birth of such a great company?
Sure. So it as a young girl, never thought I wanted to be involved in the family business. In fact, thought, I'm going to move away from town. Thought I was going to be a writer for a while, then thought I was going to be a child psychologist, and came back to the area. Had been living in New York City, needed a break from city life, came back, and at that time, Bonadent, and my dad was running the business and wanted to move it from Auburn back to Seneca Falls. And we, as part of that, wanted to offer childcare as a benefit to employees. So because my background was in child psychology, I joked that was his way of kind of roping me back into the family business.
He had a plan.
Yeah, exactly. He asked me to open the daycare center as part of the amenities in the Seneca Falls location. So I did that for a period of time. And then someone was going out on maternity leave. And he said, could you just fill in for that person? And then you can go do whatever it is you're destined to do with your life. Yeah. And so I filled in for someone on the business side of things. And the business had evolved so much from when I was a little kid. And they were working with marketing agencies and advertising nationally. And the team had grown, and they were, servicing dentists all over New England. So it was really a much more exciting stage of the company. And so I got interested in it at that point in time. And then over time, filled in different roles as the family sort of needed help, whether it was in finance or sales or marketing or operations, and kind of through that time learned so much about it and just have been there ever since. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. And I mean, there's something so special about the company too, because even though you're servicing, nationwide, basically, there's really a hometown family feel to it. And so was there kind of some pull there too when you got to know the people and you kind of felt like you were part of something really important locally?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the thing that I love most about our company is the team. Yeah. We have over 300 employees now, which is really exciting. But just about everybody knows everybody. So even though we've grown into this much larger company, we still have that family feel. There's lots of families that work within the organization. Yeah. So we've got, brothers and sisters, parents and children, spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends. So it really is a very family-oriented atmosphere and very team-oriented. I think the exciting piece about it is that everybody's really sort of collectively involved in kind of helping us achieve our goals. So it's a really great culture, great atmosphere.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned culture. That was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because it's very difficult to cultivate a culture and instill certain values in people. But like I say, that seems to have naturally evolved at Bonadent. Is that something that's strategic from, the top, or is that just something that you think happened naturally?
I think it's really something that, to be honest with you, my grandfather started.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just grown organically and evolved, but always sort of been there. He has always emphasized the importance of people,
mm-hmm.
and people being the business that we're in, not dentistry necessarily.
Yeah.
And that if you take really good care of your people,
mm-hmm.
they will take really good care of your customers. And, my grandfather passed away a couple of years ago, but
mm-hmm.
when we were going through his things, we found he would write notes to my dad, to myself, to my sister, to our leadership team, kind of just little tips and things to remember. And we found all these little notes about, make sure to take good care of your people and make sure to, emphasize this with your people. So I think that sense of sort of culture and team really started with my grandfather.
Yeah.
And, has kind of carried through. My dad certainly had a very strong sense of, team and taking care of those around him. So, yeah.
Well, and a personal story about that. So my husband worked at Bonadent for 13 years. Yeah. And this was shortly after I came home from college, and I had just turned 21, and I had gotten in some legal trouble with drinking. And he went to your dad and had a meeting and was telling him about it and said, and so she's got to do some stuff, and it's going to be hard for her to find a job. And your dad said, well, I have a job for her in the cafe. I'd love to bring her on. And I remember him telling me that, and I'm like, did you tell him though? I really messed up, and I got to get my stuff together. And he's like, no, he said, that's fine. That he basically, I think he might've said, that's it. That's all she did. And after working there, I started to see other people and other instances where he was very compassionate with people and really believed in redemption and second chances. And that's not something that you get just anywhere. And I mean, obviously, since then, things have turned around for me a lot. I've really improved. And I don't know what would have happened without that chance. And that was always just very meaningful to myself and my family. And I think it said a lot about your dad and the company as a mm-hmm. whole, that you guys were willing to take someone and say, come on, let's turn this around. People make mistakes. And so is that something that you've witnessed and been a part of as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, just resonates sort of the mindset of taking care of your people and mm-hmm. recognizing that we're all people and we're all human and we're all, traveling a journey. And it's not always a straight path. And there's going to be bumps along the way, but that at the end of the day, to be there for each other. And I think he has instilled that. There's many things that I admire about him and his leadership style, but that's one of those things where he is very personable with the people that are a part of his team, his not only his coworkers but his friends, and being there for them, and also just helping people get to where they want to go. Mm-hmm. That's something that he's kind of instilled in all of the leadership team, is that help people develop, help mm-hmm. people grow, help them achieve whatever their goals are. I think that is the thing that really sort of, inspired him as a leader.
Yeah. And it just sets you guys apart. And I mean, that type of mentorship and leadership is evident among, Frank Bello was a great mentor mm-hmm. to Brad, and Mike Alessio is a great mentor for people. So it's one of those instances where I think it starts from the top and it kind of bleeds through the company where, people, if you hold yourself to a high standard, other people do the same and try to pass that on.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
That's so valuable. Now, so for you, growing up and seeing the evolution, did you feel any type of pressure stepping into your new role as the president and CEO?
None.
Not at all.
No, obviously, yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? You have this family business that's been around since my grandfather started it. So there's certainly a degree of pressure, but I welcome it. There's a great quote, pressure is a privilege. Mm-hmm. I take that very seriously. And, another, sort of quote that I've kind of internalized is to those that much is given, much is expected.
Yeah.
So, there does come pressure, but there's also a lot of great opportunities that have come from this. So I take them both.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, and and here we are, we're in the birthplace of women's rights. And I've had people, say, how does it feel to be a business owner as a woman? And I'm like, I don't think of myself that way. Does that ever cross your mind of like, wow, this is one of the most prominent companies in the area and we have a female CEO. Is that important to you?
It certainly is something that's important to me, absolutely, and something that I'm aware of. I graduated from Barnard College in Manhattan, which was an all women's college. So that's kind of been, important to me for a number of years. I care very much about our community. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that we are the birthplace of women's rights. I think it's a resource and opportunity that we should continue to sort of build upon within the community. Mm-hmm. To grow it. And I love the idea of helping other young women sort of achieve their goals, find their voice, have confidence to pursue whatever their goals are. So yeah, it's very much a part of kind of who I am as a person and what I care about.
Yeah. Well, and we mentioned, you obviously grew up watching your father and your grandfather. And what are some things that you're hoping your children see in you that might inspire them for their future?
That's great. Great question. I think, first and foremost, what's important to me about how my children grow up is I want them to have their own voice. Mm-hmm. and listen to their own internal voice and understanding what's important to them, what they like to do, what they don't like to do, and then when they figure whatever that is out, attacking it wholeheartedly and going after it. So having goals, working to achieve them, but ensuring that they're their own goals, not those of someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important too. And you mentioned, that the community is very important to you. And I mean, your family has been very active in the community and through the schools, and you've been very charitable, particularly through the Bonadent Foundation. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've been very kind of active in giving back to the community for a number of years. It's been important to us not only in Seneca Falls, where our family has been raised, but throughout each of the communities that we do business in all of our locations. But in particular, Seneca Falls, because the family was born and raised here. So a lot of that charitable giving has happened through Bonadent in the past. And then within the last year, we started the Bonafiglia Family Foundation as a way to create, I think, kind of a legacy for the family, but really as a way to give back on a much more significant level over time. So
yeah, and I saw that you made a contribution to the library. What are some of the other places that you guys have contributed?
Yeah, so we've contributed to the library, to North Seneca Ambulance, to really a lot of different organizations. Judy Sinacropi-Wenzel is our executive director. We're excited to have her on board. So a number of different organizations kind of throughout Seneca County.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's something that I always keep in my mind as well. Like you say, when you have these privileges and these things and you're operating a business in this area, it's so nice to be able to do that and give back and see the effects right in the community. I mean, we've always had a soft spot for the Seneca Falls Backpack Program because I worked in the school district for a while, and I could see, the direct impact of poverty and people who were struggling or people who just needed a little help, And during the pandemic, especially when Brad and I both were out of work for a little bit of time, I was like, we need to do something. And so we actually were able to deliver some of the meals and see some of the places. And it was just it made me so grateful to be in the position that I was in. Here we were panicking about, oh my gosh, COVID, are we going to have enough money? Are we going to do this? And it put things into perspective for us of how fortunate we are and that we were able to give back. And like I say, you're not donating to some national charity that you hope will trickle down somewhere. You're seeing it right in your own community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Judy has done a lot of work as we've sort of established our our goals and our core mission of the foundation, Judy has done a lot of work to kind of understand what the needs of the community are. And there are a lot of needs around sort of just basic needs. Housing, food, nutrition, healthy access to activity. So a lot of our focus will be on supporting groups, that are dialed into that, like the backpack program, like House of Concern. And then we also hope to spend some time on, activities around building up the community and what are the ways that we can promote, businesses like yourselves. I love the energy that you're bringing to downtown, and how can we promote and help others do the same. So things like that to help the community as well.
Yeah, that's so powerful. How they say, when you get where you're going, turn back around. And it's so important because, not only do people look up to you and say, oh, I can do that too, or I can do something similar, but say, instill those values and say, yeah, as I'm on my way, I want to make sure I give back too. Well, and another part of the culture at Bonadent is health and wellness. And many of your people have competed in the Ironman triathlon. So where did that kind of come from? And is that still, kind of prevalent there?
So it started with my dad, who, as a way to be aware and mindful of his own sort of fitness and energy level, got involved in it started with marathons and then evolved into triathlons and then evolved into the Ironman. And then, he really inspired others to participate as well. So there was this whole sort of enthusiasm around participating in races and marathons, half marathons, 5Ks, triathlons. So it was a really big push for a long time. And we still have a core group of people who kind of still do that. And Mike Alessio, a great example of someone who really works hard to sort of inspire others to stay, physically fit. I think it's an important part of health and wellness.
Yeah. Well, and it's such an important part of life. And in ways, too, it benefits the company, because when you have employees who are energized and healthy and motivated and happier. I mean, we all know that if you're working toward a goal and you're staying accountable to certain things, it does create a happier life. And so it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I mentioned earlier about COVID, and, I hate going back to talk about it, but there are so many lessons that we can learn from how we all navigated our way through. And so what was COVID like for your company? Were there any tough decisions that you guys had to make?
There certainly were some tough decisions because as a result of COVID, dentistry for the most part sort of shut down.
Right.
So for a period of time, we had to make the tough decision to furlough employees. And fortunately, the government came in to be able to help those employees get through that period of time, probably 6 or 8 weeks.
Okay.
What I think, with every adversity, you look to what positives can you glean out of it. And I think for us, some things, we were able to sort of pivot during that time. So we do, as part of our manufacturing process, we do 3D digital printing.
Okay.
And so if you remember at that time, PPE was in scarcity.
Yes.
And hard to come by. So while the majority of our workforce was out, we did have some people who stayed on and helped manufacture face shields. So we actually donated, significant numbers of face shields to local hospitals and first responders and dentists who were still seeing patients and things like that. So it gave us, those people that were there really gave them a sense of purpose, and we could sort of rally around that. And then the other thing that we did to sort of keep our employees kind of engaged was we did like fun weekly skits, just to be able to keep that culture and that sort of community engaged. So we did really, goofy spoof sort of skits every week where we would, we made, it was almost Saturday Night Live-ish.
Yeah.
We did like a weekend update where we would give, employees updates using that as kind of the format, or we would, make fun of Tiger King. And, Bruce and Mike Alessio did some really goofy sort of skits along the way.
Oh, that's so funny.
It was a fun way to sort of, keep people up to date on what was happening, because things were, if you remember, changing, weekly, and kind of, bring some levity to the situation and sort of keep community going.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, it was such a crazy time, and like we say, you look back and you can learn so much from it. But sometimes I look back and I think, God, how the heck did we do that? And I'm sure you do too. But
Absolutely.
It sounds like, when you were talking about the face shields, a quote popped into my mind of kind of when you feel helpless, get helpful.
Right.
And like you say, you did this pivot and you didn't say, okay, how can we pivot into making money here? You were like, how can we make a pivot? Give these people a purpose and help. And I think that's really speaks to your values. And you have a lab in Florida, correct?
We do.
So were there any differences in how you could operate the company here in New York State versus the location in Florida, or did you keep it the same?
There were actually. So we actually have locations in South Carolina, Florida, as well as Tennessee. And it was interesting to see how, state government handled it a little differently everywhere.
Yeah.
So South Carolina in particular, a lot of dentists stayed more open.
Okay.
And were servicing patients more than, say, here in New York. And so those labs kept a few more, team members on than we did in New York. And Florida was the same as well. So yeah, each state was a little bit different. I mean, in general, it was basically a shutdown, but some were busier than others.
Yeah. Well, and I want to pivot a little bit. It's something that I like to ask everyone because there's kind of this myth out there that you can have a successful career and a thriving family and earn a lot of money and have a great social life and do all of it simultaneously. And I still don't believe it. And obviously your husband, he's my personal doctor as well, but he has a thriving career and you're both very busy. You have 2 wonderful children. How do you guys balance it all?
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a challenge. I think it was Hillary Clinton, right, that said it takes a village.
Yeah.
So I definitely understand where that sentiment comes from. We're fortunate enough to have family around that has helped a great deal.
Yeah.
And so it is a balance. And,
yeah.
Requires communication and coordination. And we joke that we have a marker erase board in the hallway as you walk into our house that has kind of a calendar, and it tells everyone where everyone's going.
Yes.
Every day, because there is so much going on, and as the kids have gotten older, obviously it becomes more complicated and more running around. But we managed to make it happen.
Well, and do you find, Brad and I have found that if we don't actually put a date night or something on the calendar physically, that it just won't happen. Right. Do you guys find that you have to kind of schedule time for you guys to just relax or go out to dinner?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, we have some friends who are really good at saying, hey, let's make this happen. And so, that's part of it. I think with everything, right? With every part of your life, sort of prioritizing, scheduling, carving out, dedicating time to what's important helps make sure that you actually commit to it.
Stick to it.
Yeah.
Well, and so, I mean, you have such a busy life. You have this great career, a wonderful family. Where does your motivation for this come from? Do you have, personal fitness practices, or what is it that keeps you going?
Yeah. So, you mentioned, the importance of activity previously, and I would say, that's a big part of it. So I try to spend time on self-care and, doing something active at least 5 times a week, whether that's running or I enjoy biking. Triathlons have been a ton of fun for me as well. I've also started kind of spending time meditating.
Okay.
So I make a point every morning to meditate, just to sort of, I find it kind of grounds me and slows down the monkey mind sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to ask, do you use an app, or how do you do that? Because I've worked a little bit with it too, and I have a difficult time shutting down the mind. What's your secret?
So I have a difficult time shutting down the mind too, and that's what meditation tells you, is that's okay.
Yeah.
When you start to veer off, just come back to the breath. I have a book that I follow that's kind of a daily meditation, as well as the Calm app. So I spend about 15 minutes every morning with those two things, and it's really helped. And I don't get it right every single day, but trying to commit to it just about every day really helps.
Yeah.
And I've noticed a difference just kind of in my overall sort of well-being, sense of calm.
Yeah.
So that really helps. And then, I try to sort of write down my goals and have plans for myself where I want to be in, even 3, 6, 9 months, but a year, 5 years from now. I think when I've done that, I've had good luck sort of getting there.
Yeah.
So
well, you seem like a very organized person. Is that fair to say? A planner?
Some days better than others.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to be.
I do the same thing. I'm 8 years into my business, and it wasn't until COVID, really, when I started listening to podcasts and, listening to other more successful people and kind of what their routines were, where I was like, I could kind of connect the dots and say, okay, a lot of these people, they're intentional about where they want their month to go, their life to go. And of course, things are going to happen and change it, the best laid plans. But I had never really done that for myself and said, okay, this is what I want out of this. It's not just, well, let's see what happens, because I realized that for the first few years, that's kind of how I was operating. And things have gotten so much busier for us. But at the same time, I do feel a little bit more like I have control over the business. It's not running me. I am running the business. So, it is important when you have a lot on your plate to stay organized, I think.
Yeah. Well, I applaud you for what you're doing downtown. I love the energy that you've brought, and it's just great, just from the way it looks to the people that it's bringing into the community. So good for you. Whatever
Thank
you're
you.
doing is working.
Thank
awesome.
you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's so, every time we have people that come in and say, oh yeah, we made a weekend trip up from Pennsylvania. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
It's just,
great.
It's so nice. And, I think I'm on some committees here and we talk about, where we want the community to go. And sometimes you feel like you're standing at the bottom of a mountain, like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? But I've sat down with our neighbor, Brad Ellis, and talked with him and some other people in town. And there really are some inspiring and great minds that want to do things. And so, one of my goals of this podcast too is I hope that it inspires community members to support downtown a little bit more as well. We have a lot of weekends where it's like, thank God we have tourists coming through here, because does everybody just leave town? Of course, a lot of people have kids too, so they keep them running. But, I really do hope that we start to see some more traffic in town and fill up some more storefronts. There's a lot of things in the works to do that right now. And so I'm very hopeful for the future of our area. I think business is so important it's a big piece of that puzzle to do it.
Yeah. Well, and we have some really great resources, and it's exciting to see people like yourself and like Brad, and a number of others downtown really sort of investing that time and energy and thought around how can we continue to capitalize on our resources. What are the great things that we have happening here, and how can we get more people to see it? So it's great. And you mentioned, kind of mentorship, and I think this podcast is a great vehicle for mentorship. And I know for myself that has always been a big part of what's helped me as in my own journey, has been sort of turning to others who have come before me, and taking time to, and not being afraid to ask them questions or ask advice or things like that. Mentors have played a big role for a long time, even when I was young. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that too, because I feel like there's this strange perception that, successful and busy people, they're too busy. They don't want to hear from me. And every person basically that I've spoken to has always said, just reach out to me. Like I want to help out. And a lot of that too is because some people, when they start out, they didn't have that. And so they can see the value of, gosh, if I had just known this a little sooner and, shared some of the do's, the don'ts, the mistakes, all of those things can be so valuable to someone, starting out, and to feel less alone, because entrepreneurship can be very lonely at times. And, it sounds so strange because you're surrounded by people. But I've had these moments too where I'm like, do I have friends or do I just know a lot of people? you know, because it can feel like that because, you know, I'm visiting with these people, but then my head's down again and I'm doing the work. And so, you know, it's just really nice to be able to have a community of people and have those relationships where maybe you don't see each other, but you can shoot someone a text and just say, hey, I'm just kind of dealing with this right now. Have you ever been through this before? Right. You know, and that having that mentorship is so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is something that people might not know about you? As you said, this is your first interview, so I figured we might as well just pull back the curtain a little bit.
You may not know about me. I'm actually incredibly introverted, so people might, you know, think otherwise just because of, you know, maybe the role I'm in or I don't know, but actually incredibly introverted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that because I am a very friendly person. I can sit and talk one-on-one with people very easily, but it's very challenging for me as well. I'm kind of a homebody, a loner by nature. So, you know, to do these things, it's definitely outside my comfort zone. When I went to a meeting, the town hall meeting a couple weeks ago, and I spoke, my Fitbit thought I was doing a cardiovascular exercise because my heart was beating so fast. Right. But I thought, you know, it's so important though to, again, share that with people because I think a lot of people think that discounts them from certain roles in the world. And, you know, the more I talk to people, the more I realize that there are a lot of people that are doing really important things that it's maybe not the most comfortable for them, at least in the beginning, but they're doing it. And I think that's a good challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of hope for people. So I usually round out the show by doing a little bit of rapid fire where you'll kind of answer briefly, like one word, one sentence, something like that. Are you ready?
I will do my best.
Okay. What does being successful mean to you?
I would say, you know, living congruently with, you know, what makes me feel happy on the inside and being able to deliver that on the outside.
Yes, perfect. What is your biggest strength, Danielle?
Probably my work ethic.
Yeah. Okay, fill in the blank. The biggest lesson I've learned in my life is?
Life is a journey. It's not a straight shot from point A to point B. There are going to be bumps along the way. My Uncle Kurt used to always say, just ride the wave.
Yeah.
Ride the wave. So I think that's been the biggest lesson.
Absolutely. When it's time to take a break and relax, what are you doing?
I love to be outdoors, to be in nature. Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing to do. Put on a cozy sweatshirt and get out in nature.
If you could go back, how old is your daughter right now?
She's just turned 18 yesterday.
18. Happy birthday, Ella. Okay. If you could go back and tell yourself something at 18, what would you tell you?
Pay attention to your inner voice.
Perfect. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for doing this. Like I say, that your first interview, I feel so honored. But I think, you know, there's a lot of value in what you shared here today. And if someone wants to follow you or follow Bonadent and see what they're doing, what's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, certainly visit us online. We have a website, and I also have a bit of a social media presence, although it's quiet and small right now. But either way, or just email or call.
Well, thank you again so much. And guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please share it and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and listening. Be sure to follow us on all the socials: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.